Amen. Wasn't that lovely? Not the technical issues, but the music. All right. Who here, thank you for coming, and who here is from Bismarck itself? Okay. 3, 4 families. All right. Everyone else is from outside of Bismarck. Well, you know what? I want to give some preliminary stuff. I've got my notes so I don't forget because I wanted it organized. And if you know me, I'm organized, so just because I love order. But doesn't God? Okay, so this weekend, starting tonight, we have Dana Lot Gazelschen. I have been calling her Dana, and then she corrected me when she saw the video. Nope, it's Anna with a D. So Anna with a D, that's how you say her name. Tomorrow we have an 11 o'clock a.m. and a 2 p.m. Sunday we have a 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Okay, so if you have any questions on when, just let me know. I can send you a text. We'll have lunch between those two times each day. So meeting, lunch, meeting tomorrow as well as Sunday. I'm not going to, announce what the names of her lectures are because I will probably get them out of order. For tomorrow, if you know of any children that are going to come, we can have them upstairs twice. So one for Sabbath school or Bible study. All right, Bible study class for children, as well as for the divine service. So I have a program for them that will be working with them on nutrition. So we'll be going over the New Start program with the children. So they get an opportunity tomorrow twice to be upstairs. However, I am going to ask everyone, if you know anyone that's going to bring children besides myself, if you, and anyone that's listening tonight, that is going to be here with children. You can get with me on the order. I don't want to complicate things, but I'm going to have you sign in and out your children. So I want to make sure that they have their break with you between the two sessions, the Bible study, as well as the divine service for them upstairs. So they get a break with you because I'm going to be in here. And then I will dismiss them after the announcements tomorrow. So hopefully that's not muddy. Hopefully that's clear. So sign them in, sign them out twice tomorrow if you're here. And as far as anyone that knows me or knows the standards of how we like our food, please go ahead and present your food that way. But if you have any questions, let me know. So the easy way to say it is plant-based. So plant-based. We are all about nutrition here. As far as anything else, we have more announcements tomorrow. If you're not going to make it tomorrow or Sunday and you would like to give a love offering, let myself know, or Tanya, Jack, Jeff. So Jack is in the booth. Y'all know us. Let us know, and then we will take care of that for you. All right, without any further ado, we have Dana Lot Gazelschen. She said, you can take out the lot because that's for people that knew me before, and so, but I'm used to saying that now. But Dana Gazelschen, she is a registered nurse. She is a lifestyle counselor. She also studied to be a clinical herbalist. And her husband have a ministry called Closure for Jesus. Closure for Jesus. Are we ready for this world to close and us just go home to heaven? Amen. I don't know how her name of her ministry came about, but that's what comes to mind when I think of Closure for Jesus. And does anyone know, without saying it out loud, where she comes from? Raise your hand. Do you know what town and city? Yeah. She comes from Bismarck, North Dakota. Is that right?
I flew out of Bismarck.
Oh, okay. Well, she went from Bismarck to Bismarck. Okay, so she's got lots of hours of information on YouTube and Facebook that you can, I don't know if you're going to advertise your page, but lots of YouTube and Facebook information out there. And without any further ado, I'm just going to introduce you, and the platform is yours, Dana. Thank you for coming. I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's very good to be back in the South. 2 nights ago, it was 40 degrees in North Dakota. So I'm thawing out. I'm really enjoying being here. So thank you so much for inviting me. On May 24th, we had snow in Goodrich, North Dakota, which is where my husband is from. Can you hear me? This one? Is that better? Okay, good. You could probably see me a little better now, too. I'm not, most of the time whenever, and this happened last night when I got picked up, I didn't know you were so little. So I'm short. So I get that everywhere I go. People think I'm much bigger when they see me on YouTube. You know, I've spent a considerable amount of time reviewing for this weekend. And I have to be quite honest that the more I review these things, the less I feel I know. And I kind of feel like if you have ever been with a child yourself to the ocean and you have a little bucket for your sand and a little shovel, I feel like I'm at the edge of the ocean with my little bucket and a spoon trying to fill up as I study these things. There's so much to learn about the brain, the body, the Word of God. You know, it's amazing. So what I want to talk to you about tonight, how many of you think about your liver? Okay, good. I am glad to see that. How many of you have ever done a liver detox? Wow, that's fantastic. Well, the reason that I actually started studying these things was this was born of necessity for me, because let's see, what year was it? I think it was 2018. Excuse me, I'm fighting a cough, so bear with me and please pray for me. 2018, I got tetanus. I think it was August. Excuse me. And then January, I'm going to have to get some water, excuse me. January 2019, I got Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Excuse me. Then I got mold toxicity, which is part of what this is. My apologies. So, if you're here tonight with a chronic illness, my heart is with you, because I'm still struggling with chronic illness. And that, I am so sorry. Thank you. Thank you. I've been fighting this all day. It kind of started in North Dakota. The house that I am exposed to in North Dakota has mold. And so mold has nearly killed me more than once. So if you're here with a chronic disease, please know that my sympathies are with you. And that, excuse me, is why. Thank you. Thank you. Why this talk exists. This is exactly what I hoped wouldn't happen, but the Lord knows all things. Can you hear me? Okay. Good. Okay. Let me give a little disclaimer. This talk is for educational purposes only. Okay. I'm not a physician. We have a physician here, and I should sit down and let her speak. But I'm very thankful to be here and that I have the privilege to talk to you about these things tonight. This is a passion that I have. I really feel like everyone needs to address their liver health, and I'm very thankful that I saw so many hands raised tonight. Everything that you put on your body, as far as new clothes, by law, has flame retardants added to it. When you sweat, your body just absorbs that stuff. Be sure and wash your clothes before you wear them, your new clothing. Have you ever eaten anything out of one of these? Who hasn't, right? God forbid you should heat it in microwave. If you put hot food in this styrofoam, you're eating styrofoam. Your liver has to deal with that. When you're standing at the gas pump pumping gas, you're inhaling the fumes. Your liver has to deal with that. Anything that you put on your body, paints that we're exposed to, painters are some of the most sick people that I've ever encountered. Hairdressers, some very sick people because they're dealing with chemicals all the time. If you eat and store foods in plastics, especially if you put hot food in plastics, plastics contain something called, they are xenoestrogens. What does that do? What does a fake estrogen do in your body? It's a bully. It causes, I have seen men develop breasts because of excess xenoestrogens. I have seen women become estrogen dominant and develop breast cancers, and largely it's attributable to this. Now, when I married my husband, we married in 2012, he was doing pest control. And his supervisor, bless his heart, he was a very kind man, and it's against company policy, but he let me ride with my husband because I didn't know anybody in North Dakota. I was alone. And I sat in the truck watching my husband with a pair of gloves like this on and a face mask. His head was exposed. The chemicals can go right through his shirt, and he's spraying a house standing in a cloud of chemicals. I thought, Lord, I just married this man. I was 47 before I got married. I don't want to lose this man. I wanted to take his liver out and put it on a washboard and scrub it because I knew this man was toxic. And so he's been very cooperative, so he's very gracious to me. You know, if I put something in front of him and say, honey, take this, he's down the hatch. He trusts me. How many of you have ever eaten out and they hand you a sandwich or whatever in this shiny paper? That's toxic. I can be in my car at a stoplight and I can smell the cigarette smoke with my window up of the person in the car next to me. What is it, 4,000 and upward chemicals in cigarette smoke. Carpets are outgassing, new carpets. Formaldehyde is one of the things they outgas. And then don't get me started on GMOs and sugar. And if you're burning fragrance, these scented candles in your home, you may as well open the window and put a pipe in and start your car because this is petroleum. This is not healthy for you to breathe. And your liver has to process that. And all of these things can make us feel like this lone soldier against an army. And so we really need to love our liver. And there's a reason why you probably know, maybe you know why I have the lemon up here. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But I read this passage one time in this book called Healthful Living on page 15. And I thought, this is so profound. We are to study this marvelous organism, the human system, and the laws by which it's governed. Our body is governed by law. God is a God of order. And I'm so thankful for that order because I appreciated what Renee was sharing earlier. She's very organized, and I can tell you that's true. This whole meeting, she was so organized in how she interacted with me, and everything was just right laid out. Yes, thank you. So we're going to talk tonight about the liver. Your liver is located on the right side, kind of up in this area, up under the rib cage a little bit, under the diaphragm on top of the kidney. Weighs roughly 3 pounds. Of course, my husband's weighs more than mine. Here's another picture of it. You can see how things hook up with the hepatic ducts and all these things in the cystic duct, and the gallbladder looks like is that little green peanut looking thing there. We're going to talk a lot more about the gallbladder and tonight, as well as the liver. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about. Here's another one. Here's a picture that has stones, and you can see there's, I don't know if this will show up on the screen. It won't. In different places, there's stones, and you can see it also in this one, that stones can get stuck anywhere along these ducts, and it can cause some real problems. At the beginning of the pancreas, and this can cause some real problems with the pancreas as well. The liver gets about 25% of the blood from every single heartbeat, so it's a very vascular organ, very important organ, and there's about 2,000 miles of bile ducts in the liver. It holds about 1 pint, which is about 13% of the body's blood supply at any given moment, and has mainly 2 parts. If you remember from the picture, there's mainly 2 lobes in the liver. Some people will argue 3, but I don't die on that hill. Even if about 75 to 80% of your liver is damaged, you may have no symptoms. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. That is an amazing statistic to me. There's 3 main categories of functions. Now, these are just generalizations that the liver does. It's a storage plant, it's a processing plant, and it's a manufacturing plant. We're not going to go into a lot of detail on that, because what we want to focus on more tonight is what's happening in the environment that's causing your liver problems, because there's a lot of things that I think people are not thinking about, and I just want to raise awareness of that tonight. There's 2 distinct sources of blood supply that supply blood to the liver, and that kind of makes it unique among organs. You can see in the picture that I'm just about to show what that is, but oxygenated blood comes to the liver in the hepatic artery, and then you have blood from the GI tract that comes so that the liver can process the things that are in the blood. So this is not anatomically correct, but this will kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. You have the hepatic artery feeding blood in to nourish the liver itself, and then you have this nutrient-rich blood from the GI tract so that the liver can process the things that are in the blood, and then blood leaves the liver through the hepatic vein and also back to the GI tract through the bile duct. Bile is very important. How many of you know what bile is? Okay, we're going to learn a little bit more about bile tonight. The liver regulates most chemical levels in the blood and excretes bile. So the liver is manufacturing this, excreting it, and it's stored and concentrated in the gallbladder. If you don't have your gallbladder, then you can't store and concentrate that. You just kind of have a constant little drip. And one thing that I have recently, I'm theorizing on this, I have a lot of people that have had their gallbladder removed, and they fall into either constipation or diarrhea. I believe, and you can correct me if you think I'm on the right page with this, those who have a more rapid drip of bile, I think, are the ones that lean towards diarrhea, and those who don't have as much bile are those who would lean more towards constipation, because bile helps the bowels. It's very helpful for bowel movements. So this bile is one of the ways that the liver gets rid of its toxins. Since World War II, we've introduced over 89,000 new chemicals in our environment, and some estimates are that we introduce about 1,500 more every year. These may be conservative estimates. I'm not sure, but this is what I found when I researched this. So we live in an environment, I have a quote about this in just a minute, we live in an environment now where when my grandparents were young, their livers could handle the toxins that came to them from the environment that they lived in. But it's not the same world today. Things are very different now. We have so many toxins, and we're going to get into that tonight. Look at this statistic. Babies, newborn babies, haven't had a chance to do drugs, haven't had a chance to even eat food. 300 different chemicals in their cord blood at birth. Where did that come from? Mama. Came from mama. Mitochondria, these are the little powerhouses in the cell, if you remember from your high school biology. These are the little electrical components. They produce our energy, and toxicity causes them to lose their electrical charge. I was sitting on the back of the church today reviewing, and I felt kind of weird, and I looked up, and I'm sitting underneath a smart meter, so I took my shoes off, and I started walking around outside just to kind of, help my electrical charge in my body to get grounded. So all of the blood leaving the stomach and intestines passes through the liver, and the liver processes blood and breaks down, balances, and creates nutrients and even hormones. How many of you knew that the liver makes hormones? Okay, that's one of the things that the liver does. It also breaks down drugs, and some people estimate the liver does over 2,000 different things. And so we can understand that the liver is very vital. Here's a few more things that the liver does. This is by no means a comprehensive list. It's just to give you an idea of some of what the liver is doing while you're even sitting here right now listening to me. We talked about it produces bile. That helps to carry waste away through the intestines. The liver produces cholesterol and other proteins that help to carry fats throughout the body. It has to do with glucose and glycogen. It stores glucose as glycogen, and then when we need energy, it can convert that back to glucose. And so we can go on and look at this. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I have a lot of slides to cover tonight. So these are just some of the things. Regulating blood clotting is very important. I had a friend who died of it was breast cancer. It metastasized to her liver, and she started throwing up blood. She started passing blood, and it was because her liver was just gone. And so, okay, and we talked about this a little bit. The liver gets rid of toxins when it breaks them down two ways mainly. It gets rid of it through the bile and through the blood. If it goes with the bile, it's eliminated through the colon. If it goes from the blood, then of course it's the urine. We also get rid of toxins in our sweat. That's why it's important to sweat and in other ways too. But you can see if our body gets rid of toxins largely through the intestines, what is going to happen? I know you've all used a funnel before, and I know if that bottom part down here gets plugged up, what's going to happen to what you're trying to pour through that? It's going to overflow, right? And that's what is happening with so many people today. The liver is overflowing with toxins, and it manifests itself as skin disorders, autoimmune disorders, and all kinds of just a plethora of different issues. So we have to keep the kidneys hydrated. The water intake is important, but we also have to keep our bowels moving. We're going to get a little bit up close and personal this weekend. I'm gonna talk about your bowel movements, okay? I want to know how much you're pooping, okay? Excuse me. All right. 3 phases of detoxification. We're going to get into that more tomorrow afternoon and especially Sunday. You've got to be having good bowel movements. This is relatively new information as research goes, but there's 3 phases of liver detoxification. The first phase is activation, and we're going to get into this a little bit more. The second phase is neutralization, and the third is elimination, and these cruciferous vegetables are important all the way through. All right, let's talk about activation. Phase 1, activation, this is where liver enzymes begin to break down these toxins into a more water-soluble form. Toxins are what's called lipophilic. They're stored in fat. That's why a lot of people come to me, I can't lose weight. I've tried everything. Well, have you detoxed? No. okay? The body is intelligent. It's not going to let go of those toxins, the fat cells, if we're toxic, because those cells are full of toxins. So if you are someone who is trying to lose weight, think about detox, okay? Because a lot of times the body will let go of those extra fat cells if you will detox. In this first stage, I kind of wondered when I studied this, I thought, what is the body doing? Because these toxins are actually rendered more toxic in this first stage of liver detox. This making it into water-soluble instead of stored in fat. Because this creates all kind of free radicals. If you don't know what a free radical is, I'll put it in terms for the guys to understand. We have a lot of men here tonight. How many of you have ever lost a wheel weight on your car? What happens when you lose a wheel weight? Yeah, I see everybody doing this. You're going down the road just bumping along. Everything is unstable. Well, that's kind of what happens. You have the free radical there. He's lost one of his electrons. These little balls represent electrons. And if you lose one of your electrons in your outer ring there, then you've created a free radical. Antioxidants have an extra electron, so they're friendly. They're going to give that extra electron and make this guy happy again so he doesn't steal one from his neighbor and make him a free radical. Okay, so you can see how that could be a vicious cycle if you didn't have the antioxidants. So antioxidants are in a lot of these foods that we're going to talk about tonight, especially the cruciferous vegetables. Eat the rainbow, you've heard. All of these colorful foods are very high in antioxidants. So the second phase is conjugation or neutralization, and this is where the toxin, it becomes even more water-soluble, but it is also beginning to be bound up in a way that the body can eliminate, which is the third phase, this elimination where the toxin is bound and removed in the urine or the sweat or the stool. So let's look at this. Let's break this down as far as the nutrition that is needed for each one of these phases of detoxification. Throughout this thing, we see the cruciferous vegetables because I didn't list it in phase 3, but what are cruciferous vegetables high in? They're high in fiber. And doesn't fiber help to move things out through the colon? Yes. So you can see all of these things are very essential, and we can do this with diet and lifestyle. We can add these nutrients for the liver so that we're supporting the liver through these phases of detox by adding the cruciferous vegetables so that we get all of our vitamin C, vitamin E, all these things. I like to use nettle tea. Nettle tea is very high in vitamin C. And so very, very good to support this phase. Phase 2, it also requires some protein. And so if you're just juicing and trying to do a fast, be sure you do something to add some protein to that because it's very important to help to bind up these toxins in phase 2. Cruciferous vegetables contain something called indole-3 carbinol. You can actually get that as a supplement in a bottle, indole-3 carbinol. That helps to protect the DNA and helps the cells to fight against cancer. They're high in vitamin C, E, and K. We saw that is important for these phases of detox. Now, I wondered why these vegetables were called cruciferous. And so I looked that up, and it's actually because of the shape of the flower petal. Now, this is a broccoli flower, but some of the flowers in this family, their petals are more elongated, so they look even more like a cross. Now, I thought about that, and I love when I study the human body and health. I love it when I see the fingerprint of God, His signature in these things. And so, as I pondered this, I thought, cruciferous. You see a picture of the sanctuary up here behind me and also here. In removing sin from our lives, there's 3 main phases. There's the altar of burnt offering, which made sin even more dangerous because it took the life of Christ. And then it moves to the holy place where sin is actually bound. And then the holy place is where it's gotten rid of. And so I see in the detoxification of the liver the fingerprint of God in teaching us, removing toxins, removing sin. There's a lot more meditation that could be done on this, but anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because I think it's so fascinating. There's a quote here by Dr. Ann Louise Gittleman, and she's one of the researchers that I have listened to in the past, and I'm not going to read the whole quote, but she goes through. I will read this part. We are living in a sea of chemicals, parasites, medications, preservatives, glyphosate, nano-aluminum, and all the electrosmog that we're surrounded by our devices, our computers, our phones, our smart meters, our Wi-Fi. All of these things are messing our bodies up. And she says we need, in the 21st century, look at that up at the top, 3 livers. We would be well to have 3 livers today. But I don't have 3 livers. I only have 1. Until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. Even now, he is at work. In accidents and calamities by sea and by land, in great conflagrations, in fierce tornadoes, in terrific hailstorms, in tempests, floods, cyclones, tidal waves, and earthquakes. In every place and in 1,000 forms, Satan is exercising his power. Do we see that today? We definitely do. He sweeps away the ripening harvest, and famine and distress follow. He imparts to the air a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous. Who knows what is in the background of this picture? Chemtrails, okay? This is very controversial. A lot of people don't believe this, but I'll tell you one thing. When I was a kid, clouds didn't look like that, and neither did contrails. Okay, so there's something to this. Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt in 2019 said within 8 to 10 years, 100% of us will have some form of dementia. And this is a controversial statement. A lot of people are poo-pooing this statement by Dr. Stephanie Seneff. She's not a physician. She's, I think, a statistician, if I'm correct. But at any rate, she has studied glyphosate and Roundup. We're going to talk about that quite a bit in just a minute. She says by the year 2025, 1 in 2 boys born will be on the autism spectrum. How far away is 2025? That's scary. That is a scary statistic. I mean, this is like right now, current. Okay? When I was a kid, growing up on the farm in Alabama, my dad taught me how to change oil and work on cars and stuff. I was raised like a boy. And so I know how to spin out a filter, and I know when it's bad, and I know how to spin in a new one, but I can't spin out my liver and replace it. Okay? So neither can you. So we need to learn how to clean our filters. Our liver is our filter. Let's look at some sources of toxins today. We looked at a little bit in the beginning, and we're going to get into this more now. Pesticide chemicals, glyphosate and Roundup, are right up there. You know, my husband is from North Dakota, and we are staying on a 640-acre farm right now, surrounded by other huge farms, and all around us are fields and fields and fields of corn and soybeans and wheat. And what do you think they're spraying? Roundup. And that's part of my health issues right now, okay? Parasites. We're going to start talking about parasites tomorrow afternoon. Plastics. We talked about the xenoestrogens, heavy metals, electromagnetic pollution, food preservatives, medications, leaky gut. If you have leaky gut, you're leaking toxins that should not be in your blood are coming from the intestines, from the small intestine into your blood. Not a good thing. And then GMOs. These toxins bioaccumulate. We talked about them being stored in the fat. And so if you're not consciously, intentionally supporting your liver to get rid of all the things that we're exposed to today, you're eventually going to have some kind of problem, okay? Some of us have a bigger bucket for our toxin load than others. I apparently was born with a little bucket. So, you know, I had problems a lot sooner than my husband, but he's manifesting some issues now as well. Okay, let's talk about geoengineering, these chemtrails, just a little bit. I was listening to a lecture by Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt one day, and he listed these things as being, they've tested water, snow, soil, where these chemtrails are being sprayed, and these are the things that they have found. They've actually, I don't know how they tested the actual chemtrail, I don't have the knowledge of that, but he said that they have found aluminum, nano-sized aluminum. If you don't know what nano-sized aluminum is, basically you inhale that and it crosses the blood-brain barrier, so it goes straight to the brain. One of the things that is a big driver of Alzheimer's disease is aluminum. Has anybody noticed an increase in Alzheimer's disease lately? There's a reason for that. Barium, strontium, mold spores. I had to rewind the video and listen to that twice when Dr. Klinghardt said that. Why would they be spraying mold spores? We're going to talk about mold a little bit more in just a little bit. Arsenic, and then they're also spraying these fibers to keep this stuff. So have you noticed how long that those trails stay suspended up there? They stay and they spread out. All right, let's talk about mold. This is something that is very real to me, okay? Mold toxins tend to clog up the liver worse than just about anything, okay? They like to accumulate in fatty tissues, the brain, you know, the liver, the heart. Fat in your body can store mold. And this can cause something called CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. This is basically just, do you remember with the COVID, people were dying with this CIRS, this cytokine storm type thing, okay? This is just basically runaway inflammation. And inflammation is the foundation of all disease, okay? Inflammation is the foundation of all disease. The Wi-Fi inflames our bodies, the toxins, everything, all this stuff. Among the most deadly of the mycotoxins is one called, it's produced by Stachybotrys. It's a T2 trichothecene toxin. This is very neurotoxic, and some have suggested, have you heard of Gulf War syndrome? Anybody heard of Gulf War syndrome? Some have suggested that this was a trichothecene mycotoxin. There's a difference between mold and mycotoxin. The mold spores are not really what causes the problems with people. It's the mycotoxin that these spores produce. Dr. Klinghardt, who I mentioned earlier, he did a study where he took 2 petri dishes and he inoculated them with mold. He covered one with what's called a Faraday cage. The other one he put right next to a Wi-Fi router. The one that was the mold dish that was covered produced no mycotoxins. The one that was open and next to the Wi-Fi router had huge amounts of mycotoxins. So if you have a house that has mold and you have Wi-Fi, it is causing your mold to produce ginormous amounts of mycotoxins. Okay, so don't take mold for granted. Unless the liver is cleared of this, it will lead to autoimmunity, which it has with me, and multi-system damage, which when I was at my sickest with mold, I had chest pain, I had liver pain, I had kidney pain, everything hurt, including all of my muscles and everything. I mean, this is an actual picture of the house where I got really, really sick. All right, we're going to move into, I really add this about mold because I really think that people are way too casual about mold in their homes. Mold is deadly, and if you don't know, the Bible in Leviticus, I forget what chapter it is very specific about how mold is to be dealt with. I think it's chapter 14. If mold is found in a house, it's called leprosy of a house. If mold is found, you're to clean it, and then you can go back in. If it comes back, you clean it again. If it comes back the 3rd time, the house is destroyed. How many people do that? Not many. Okay, let's talk about glyphosate a little bit. Glyphosate, the chemical name is N-phosphonamethylglycine. It was first patented as a chelator and also had been used as an antibiotic. What happened was It's as a chelator, it's used in industrial pipes to clean mineral deposits out of pipes. And where it came out, where the pipes, the waste that came out, there was nothing growing. And so they figured this stuff could be used as an herbicide, and that's how it came to be used as an herbicide. There is no place on earth now that is not contaminated with glyphosate because it's gotten in the hydrologic cycle. There's tens of thousands of glyphosate sprayed just on North Dakota every single year. Tens of thousands. And that's just one of the grain states. Okay. This glyphosate is a leading cause of leaky gut, autism, and encephaly, which is where babies are born basically with just the brain stem. They're not really able to function as a human. They just have the brain stem. Okay, those of you who are on a whole foods plant-based diet, among the most contaminated non-organic food sources are lentils and garbanzos. If you are not eating organic, you are eating glyphosate. You can lower your exposure to glyphosate by more than 50% just by eating organic foods. Okay, wheat, barley, oats, canola, flax, peas, soybeans, and sugarcane. These are all sprayed. Let's go ahead here. Glyphosate actually crosses the BBB, stands for blood-brain barrier, and it can lead to visual memory impairment. So I can't remember, my visual memory of things, objects can be hampered. It decreases cell viability. It causes damage to the mitochondria. It's a key driver of inflammation in the body, and as I said earlier, a major cause of leaky gut, and it interferes with neurotransmission much more. Here's a little graphic that I think I've borrowed this from Dr. Jockers or one of those guys. But it's the small bowel that we're talking about when we talk about leaky gut, but the endothelium of the small bowel is basically one cell layer thick, and if those become damaged or inflamed, then the junctions between them are open, and it allows things in the intestine to now get into the bloodstream, and this is what causes our body to respond with like autoimmune disease, and the body starts attacking itself. Here's a few symptoms of leaky gut. Bloating, especially after meals. And I find this more, people tend to bloat more after the second meal of the day. But it can be after any meal. Gas, cramping and abdominal pain, muscle aches and lack of energy, brain fog and memory issues. Remember, it crosses the blood-brain barrier. Allergies, multiple food allergies, just all of a sudden you're allergic to everything, okay? Arthritis, and again, it can lead to autoimmune disease. I was listening to a lecture by Dr. David Minkoff, and this was years ago. This was 7 years ago that I heard this. He has a clinic down in Florida, and he said of the 1,000 or so people, I'm sure it's thousands now, that he's tested for glyphosate, 100% were positive. 100%. So I would just about guarantee that every one of us have some level of this in our body today. Now I want to switch. Glyphosate sounds a little bit kind of like glutathione. Who's heard of glutathione? Okay, just a couple people. Well, glutathione is our body's master antioxidant. It's made in the liver. Remember, the liver manufactures a lot of things for us. And so it's made of 3 amino acids, glycine, cysteine, and glutamate. Glycine is the most simple amino acid. Glyphosate is also made, it's got glycine in it. And glyphosate tricks the body into using it in place of glycine to make these proteins in our body, so that now our tissues are flooded with this glyphosate, and it also causes our proteins to misfold, and the body has to break it down, redo it. Okay, here's a little pearl of information. Who likes essential oils? Anybody in here use essential oils? Good. Rosemary extract, rosemary essential oil, helps to stimulate glutathione production in the body. So do these cruciferous vegetables that we need to eat. Okay, I'm going to skip that one. There's very few things that, this is according to Dr. Don Huber, who is the world's leading expert on glyphosate. He said these are the 4 things that are actually effective at removing glyphosate from the body. Fulvic minerals, humic minerals, ACV is apple cider vinegar, and kraut juice. My husband and I use fulvic and humic minerals. This is part of why we created our new binder blend called Cuff'em, because it has humic minerals in it, and the Cuff'em is designed to bind up a big variety, from everything from mold to heavy metals to this glyphosate. Let's look at a few disorders of the liver. NAFLD stands for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The statistics that I found when I put this talk together were that 50% of Americans have this, but I personally think that that's a conservative estimate. I think it's probably more than that. This non-alcoholic fatty liver disease can actually progress to a more dangerous form of liver disease, which is this NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. And this can progress into cirrhosis and even cancer. And so there's some other things, cancer and hepatitis. These are all things that are problems with the liver. Now, fatty liver is the abnormal accumulation of fat in the liver cells due to factors such as obesity, diabetes, high cholesterol, triglycerides, and a lot of refined carbohydrates, sugars, these types of things in the diet. There's a difference between refined carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates get a bad rap, but it's the refined carbohydrates that we're concerned about. Cookies, pies, donuts, this type of thing. These are the ones that are causing this problem. And in North Dakota, it's the German food because everything has dough in it. Everything is dough, dough, dough. Okay? Here's a picture, kind of a picture. It's not an actual liver, but this is what your liver should look like. It should be smooth and healthy looking. And this is fatty liver. Okay? In this one, you're starting to get some fibrosis in there. These liver cells die, and as they die, they're replaced with fibrous tissue, this scar tissue, basically. And then it can progress to actual cirrhosis. And here you can see the progression, and it can progress all the way over into cancer. There's some lifestyle factors that contribute to this. We've mentioned some of them. Sugar in the diet, especially high fructose corn syrup. If you are drinking soda pops, you're drinking fatty liver disease, basically, okay? So it's the high complex carbohydrate or the processed carbs, the high fat diet, and inflammatory diet where you're eating these processed foods, these vegetable oils and things like that. A sedentary lifestyle can contribute to this. And then, of course, toxins in the environment. Let's talk a little bit about visceral fat. Visceral fat is not the pinch-the-inch stuff that we see on the outside. Visceral fat is far more sinister and far more dangerous because it's fat that surrounds your internal organs. And the problem with this visceral fat is that it is metabolically active. It's very inflammatory. It produces these cytokines that drive inflammation. So some people call this kind of fat angry fat. Let's talk about some symptoms of liver problems. I mentioned earlier that your liver could be 70% damaged and you don't have any symptoms. Then later I listened to a talk more recently by Dr. Bert Bertram, he passed away recently, that 75 to 90% of your liver can be damaged and you have no symptoms. I find that amazing. So brain fog and confusion, skin disorders, anytime somebody comes to me and they have skin disorders, I start thinking about, unless there's an obvious reason, I'm going to think about liver problems. What is your liver trying to deal with? You remember that the skin is one of our detox organs, and so if the liver can't handle, if the kidneys can't handle a lot of these toxins, it's going to try to push it out through the skin, okay? Foul breath odor. I skipped fatigue. but that one's kind of obvious. But foul breath odor. I have actually worked with patients whose breath smelled like stool because they were so constipated and so toxic. It's coming out their breath. These are very sick people, and they really need help. Dark circles under the eyes, abdominal pain, gas, and bloating. So you've heard the bad news. So what's the good news? How do I take care of this? I've given a little bit along the way. Pure water is important. That's kind of something that I see a lot of water bottles here, so I'm happy for that. Stress reduction. Stress is huge. Stress drives up your cortisol levels. The liver has to break that down, and that's very hard on the liver to constantly have to deal with that high level. Okay, bitters. Who likes bitter? Anybody in here like to eat bitter stuff? Very few. Yeah, my husband is in that category. If I hand him something bitter, he loves it. So most of us like the more sweet stuff. But anything bitter, when you taste that bitter taste, it stimulates bile production. Most of us get really sick because our bile is thick and sludgy and toxic. So if we take these bitters, that increases bile flow, bile production in the liver. Okay, herbs that can help with that are dandelion, milk thistle, gentian, burdock, and we carry some of these things on our online store. Minerals, exercise, healthy fat. We need those healthy fats in moderation. Brain cell membranes are 75% fat, so I'm not a proponent of a fat-free diet. A diet low in refined carbohydrates. We don't want to eat those refined processed carbs. We want the complex carbs in whole foods. And then we need to eliminate parasites, which we're going to talk about quite a bit tomorrow afternoon. So I have a few pictures in this presentation that are a little yucky. So if you're squeamish, I'll give you a warning. Okay, we're not quite there yet. Okay, so we need, the complex carbs. We need the healthy protein, probiotics. Eliminating meat and dairy goes a long way toward eliminating toxins. Sunlight. I am studying sunlight right now, and the more I study, the more I want to go lay out in the sun. I really am learning to appreciate sunlight very much. Intermittent fasting. This is a big thing in the healthcare industry right now, is intermittent fasting. Most of them tell you to skip breakfast and start with lunch and supper, but that's a little bit backwards. It's best ideal to eat a big breakfast. That's when we're getting ready to do our most of our activity. So that's when we need the most calories, the most energy. So that big breakfast, and then allowing the stomach to digest and rest, and then a nice healthy lunch, and then not eating again until the next morning. If you have the jitters when you skip a meal or when you try to fast, that's a fair indicator that your liver is probably struggling. Okay, because your liver should be able to break down the glycogen stores back into glucose. And if your liver's tied up with toxins, it may not be able to do this efficiently. So what are some healthy fats? Let's look at this just a minute. Who knows what that plant is? I like to do foraging. What? Yay, okay. That is the plant source, the highest plant source. It has the highest amount of omega-3s of any plant source. Okay, flax, chia, avocado shouldn't be. I don't know why I have avocado on there. It's not an omega-3. Walnut, hemp seeds, Brussels sprouts, purslane. Okay, these are all healthy fats. All right, I'm going to skip that one. So when we look at supporting the liver and we want to help to increase that bile flow, we also need to make sure that we're doing something to bind those toxins, because you remember phase 2 was talking about binding, and then phase 3 eliminating. So if you're not doing things to bind up those toxins, then fiber is one good way to help to bind it up. A high fiber diet helps to bind toxins. Another thing you can do to support this is activated charcoal. Just put some in water and take it before you go to bed. The liver does its detoxing at night. It's house cleaning. It enters a phase called autophagy at night while we're sleeping, ideally on an empty stomach. And when it enters that phase and it's doing its house cleaning, it's good to have a little bit of activated charcoal there, to help bind up those toxins. If we increase our bile by eating bitters and cruciferous vegetables, that is going to help our liver. Phosphatidylcholine or sunflower lecithin. If I am working with someone and I know that they're toxic and they're really struggling, I'll encourage them to get some organic sunflower lecithin and to take a teaspoon of that a couple times a day. It helps to increase this phosphatidylcholine, which the liver needs to make bile. It's a very good way to support bile production. And we talked about binders. Chlorella is a good binder also. And then intermittent fasting, we mentioned that. It helps the body to turn to detoxing. And then elimination of parasites. I forget what year it was, but I went into acute hepatitis at one point. You know, I'm a nurse, and I've worked in critical care a little bit, so I kind of knew what I was dealing with, but this was at the height of COVID, and I was not about to go to the hospital. My liver had swollen up out from under my rib cage and was so tender, and all I could do was throw up. I was so sick. This is when I was dealing with the tick disease and all that stuff. And so I kept praying. One night, I didn't think I was going to make it through the night one night. All I could do was get up and throw up and lay back down. I hurt so bad. And I started praying, Lord, what is wrong with me? And parasites kept coming to my mind, and I thought, I did a parasite detox, but I did it wrong. Okay, and I'll explain that tomorrow. So if you want to know what I did wrong and how to do it right, you have to come tomorrow afternoon. So anyway, I thought, okay, I'm gonna take this as my answer from the Lord, and I'm gonna do another parasite detox. And I did. And after about 2 or 3 days, I felt pretty yucky. But after about 2 or 3 days, I started passing parasites, and it was gross. I mean, they're nasty. And my liver started to go down, and the nausea started to go away, and I wasn't throwing up anymore. And then I watched a video, I think it was Dr. J. Davidson, and he was talking about how roundworms like to hang out in these liver bile ducts. And roundworms are quite large. They can be a foot long. They can be almost as big around as my pinky, maybe not quite, maybe more like a pencil. And I believe that one of those critters was hanging around in my liver bile duct, and that was what caused me to go into that acute hepatitis. After I did the parasite detox, that cleared out, and my liver went down, and I never had to go to a doctor, and I was fine. Do your own research. I'm not telling you, what to do, but that's what worked for me. So let's talk. I didn't give you the warning. So these are the gross pictures. So this is a colon that was removed because it was completely occluded with parasites. Okay, parasites can cause, they excrete their waste into you, and that's disgusting. It's ammonia, and I mean this is just making you sicker. It's adding to your toxic load. Okay, parasites accumulate heavy metals in their body, and they can also contribute to candida. If you don't know, there's a very close relationship between parasites, heavy metals, and candida. This right here, here's another gross picture. This is an actual, I don't know if this child survived, was given a colostomy. I highly doubt that he survived, but this was a colon that was removed from a 3-year-old child. That is an obstruction right there. That is a complete bowel obstruction. Here's some different types of worms that humans can deal with. Now, we'll talk more about parasites again later. Again, been surgically removed. This was actually a screenshot from a video that I think I have it in my presentation for tomorrow afternoon. This is a tapeworm. And what we do for this, we found out there's an herb called Mimosa pudica seed. I've never seen anything work like this stuff. It is amazing. Its nickname is gut scrubber, and it works largely by its texture. And I'll just go ahead and tell you, what I did wrong the first time I did the parasite detox was I only took the Mimosa pudica seed. I didn't think that I needed the other component. Now, the Mimosa pudica seed only works on adults because it suffocates them. And last I checked, nobody gets immune to being suffocated. So it always works. They can't get immune to it. Okay, so this stuff has to be taken on an empty stomach by itself without anything else because you don't want to change the texture. So what I should have taken to kill the eggs, the parasites pass tons of eggs as they're dying, because they want to pass on their genes. And they also send out chemical signals for eggs that they had previously hatched to hatch. And so what I should have done also was added this, and this will actually help to kill the parasite eggs, a combination of wormwood, black walnut hull, clove. Some people use oregano. That can definitely help. Now, why did I have the picture of the lemon up there? The liver and lemons are lovers. I like to say that. Here's some of the things that the lemon is going to do for you. Warm water with lemon helps prevent cellular oxidation in the liver. It helps avoid the degeneration caused by high levels of toxins and fat, so it helps to keep you from going into those liver diseases. It regulates the absorption of sugars and fats and helps to keep your liver from being overworked. Thanks to it, it's very high in antioxidants, and thanks to that and the alkalizing power of lemons, it helps to detox the liver. If you squeeze the juice of a lemon or a tablespoon or so in a glass of warm water in the morning with a little pinch of Celtic salt, it's like taking an enema from above. Okay, it really helps to flush the bile down into the intestines, helps to increase your peristalsis, and so it's very good to help increase bile flow, increase your bowel movements. Very helpful for both of those. Okay, and lemon is also a natural antiseptic, which can help control harmful bacteria. Here's some herbs that are very supportive for the liver. Milk thistle, if you see a product that says silymarin, that's milk thistle. That silymarin is just the active ingredient in milk thistle. Dandelion, ginger, and peppermint tea. Who likes peppermint tea? I mean, most people like peppermint tea. That's a bitter, and it helps to increase the bile flow. So if you want to take these herbs, a really good way to do a 1-2 punch is to take them as teas, because you're hydrating and you're giving your liver those bitters to help increase the bile flow. Now, if your inflammation in your body is high, your capacity to detoxify is low. So we want to do things, and these herbs that we just looked at here are also very anti-inflammatory. Okay? So they help to bring those levels of inflammation down. Here's some more causes of inflammation. We talked about the poor diet quite a bit tonight. Stress we talked about. We talked a lot about toxins. We talked about EMF and Wi-Fi. And I'm starting to study that a little bit more, and I did not realize just how deadly that is and just how much we need to help our bodies to deal with that. I'm not an expert on that, so I can't give a talk or presentation on that, but it's something that I think we all should look into. Leaky gut and gut imbalance, viral or bacterial overload, and I had that, of course, when I had the Rocky Mountain spotted fever and the tetanus. Hormonal imbalance and dehydration, so that's why you should take your herbs as teas. Now, in the race between the tortoise and the hare, you remember this story. Who won? Who won this race? Who remembers this story? You guys never heard the story of the tortoise and the hare? You heard it. Who won? I heard it. The tortoise won. That's right. Why did he win? Slow and steady wins the race, right? The rabbit got distracted. How many of us get distracted? You know, we're motivated to start a detox, but it's discipline that carries us through with a detox. I actually had somebody, an older gentleman one time, tell me I need a pusher. I need somebody here to push this and hand me what's next, drink this. That's kind of what I do for my husband. But he's busy, and he's my husband. So many times we feel like we need a pusher. But, we have to take responsibility, and here is the greatest motivation for taking that responsibility. Often what we know we ought to do is pulling us this direction, but my feelings, we're going to talk about that in the morning, my feelings are pulling me this direction. Oh, I don't want to get out and exercise, it's hot. My bed is comfortable. My couch is comfortable. I'm surfing the internet. You know, we have excuses. But the Lord says, I wish above all things that you'd prosper and be in health. You know, we were bought with a price. We were bought with the blood of the Son of God. It cost him his life to give us an opportunity to live. And so you are valuable. You are precious in the sight of our Creator. And he wants you to be well and not be sick. And so I hope that something that we cover tonight will not only motivate you, but help you to embrace the discipline to carry through the things that we've talked about tonight. So that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. I'd like to close with a quick prayer if I could. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for the privilege to be here with these folks. And all of us have so much to learn, Lord. I thank you that we're precious to you. I thank you that you love us. I pray that you would help us to love you. I pray that you would help us to value the bodies that you gave us. I pray that you would help us to care for them as you would have us. And in order to do that, we need to be educated, especially in today's world. Help us not to become discouraged. Help us to be courageous and inquisitive. And help us to learn these things, Father. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
What time are you meeting tomorrow and the next day?
11 and 2.